No countdown?
You do it whenever, man.
Hey, good morning, Troy campus. Whether you are watching from home or wherever you are, or maybe you're out in the lobby, I want to say welcome. My name is Andrew, and I am on staff here at the Troy campus, and I want to welcome you wherever you are watching from. And today, I'm excited about today because we are starting a brand new series called Boomer XYZ, and it probably should include Alpha as well, because in this series, we are talking about the next generation and what does it actually look like to invest into the next generation. And for those of us who are older, quote unquote, and by older I mean if we have a generation coming up after us, that's what I mean by older. And also if we are a part of the younger generation, what does it actually look like for us to invest in one another, to receive what each of us have in terms of our skills and our experience and all of that. And so we have a lot of fun that's going to be happening today. We have games, we have a message, some great music, and so I am so glad that you are with us, and we are going to get going in just a few short moments. But happy Sunday, everyone.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kensington Church. Whether you're here in person or watching us online, we are so glad that you've decided to spend some time with us this morning. You know, in this world, there's so many things that feel like they're dividing us and they're uncertain, but I love the lyrics of this first song. The chorus says, "Don't let your heart be troubled. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from, and that help and our hope comes from Jesus." So we want to remember that this morning. We want to invite you to stand and sing with us, and here we go. People come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Say, whoa. Kingdom come, so don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. strong. Remember where our help comes from. Sing! Oh, 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 oh. Sing that again. Oh.
Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
Swing wide, swing wide.
Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
Sing! Oh, 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 oh. Swing wide, swing wide.
Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All his children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
What's his name?
Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in his blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come.
Thank you guys so much. You sound amazing. Want to take a second, just say hi to someone in whatever way you feel comfortable, and we'll continue on with the service.
Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Can you guys give it up for Chris and the team one more time? Wasn't that amazing? Chris has the best energy up here, doesn't he? It's so fun to watch. Well, my name is Taylor Leal, and I'm one of the kids directors here at our Troy campus. And if this is your first time, we just want to say welcome. We're so glad that you have decided to hang out with us and spend time with us on Sunday morning. I also wanted to bring to your attention something that we have coming up, and that is our baptism. So at our next midweek here at our Troy campus on August 10th, we are going to be doing baptisms outside on the lawn, and we always joke, like, as long as it doesn't rain. We always have that problem for some reason. But we're going to be doing an outdoor baptism service, and if you've been coming to Kensington for a long time, or maybe you haven't been coming long enough, but you are ready to make a public declaration and tell all your friends that you are following Jesus and you have made a decision to love him and follow him, we would love to talk to you about that, and we would love to get you set up to do baptisms with us. So there are people out in the lobby that would love to meet you and tell you more about that after service. Another thing I wanted to draw your attention to, because I'm the kids person around here, is our Parent Cue app. And I'm going to let this video explain itself for a second, and then I'll tell you a little bit more after. So take a look at this.
From the day your child is born to the day they graduate, you have 936 weeks. 936 weeks of soccer practice and homework, and teaching them to use deodorant. 936 weeks to instill values, to build character, and to prepare them to face the world. You want to be a great parent, and we are here to help with each moment of your parenting goals. Driving your 4th grader to practice, saying goodbye to your 10th grader as he is walking out the door, eating tacos in the kitchen with your 7th grader, tucking your toddler in at night. These moments happen every week, and we want you to be aware of the time you have left, because when you are, you do more with the time you have now. We cue you with easy, just-in-time ideas of things to say, things to do, and things to think about to connect with the heart of your child. Our cues are grounded in God's big story, so your child can discover the power of faith in those everyday moments of life. Every cue fits the context of your child's developmental phase. We cue you when your high schooler won't leave their room. Your middle schooler won't pick up their clothes. Your 2-year-old won't stop talking. We help you understand these moments, and we help you connect. You only have 936 weeks. You can't afford to waste them. Parent Cue, helping you be the parent you want to be. Download it for free today.
So I myself am a Parent Cue user, and if you are a parent in the room and you don't have the Parent Cue app, I think you should download it. It's Parent CUE. You can find it in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. I don't know what they use, but it's amazing, you guys. So what Parent Cue does is they partner with our curriculum. So if you have kids in our kid program, they have the video lessons that we use every single weekend, so you'll know what we're talking about and what we're learning about on Sunday. And if you've been hanging out with us for a long time, you know that our team, our K-Kids team, we don't want the conversation to stop on Sunday. We want to empower you as parents to continue on and lead the conversation throughout the week. And this app actually helps you with that. This app gives you prompts to ask questions that pertain to the lesson that your kids learned on Sunday. So I really think it would be valuable. It also does this one thing that I don't know how much I like it. It does a countdown for how many weeks you have until your kid's graduation. It's devastating. However, it gives you this moment to really reflect and say, I have to be intentional about the time that I have left with these guys. So for our family, for me and my husband, it really makes us look at it and go, okay, we need to make sure that we're doing things a little bit different this week, and how can we pour in and invest in our kids. So download the Parent Cue app. That's my spiel. Well, today, you guys, we are kicking off a brand new series called Boomer XYZ, and I've been impatiently waiting for this series. I am a millennial myself, and we are going to be talking about multi-generations. We're going to be talking about the tensions that there are. We're going to be talking about how we can pour into the next generation, how the generations before us can be pouring into us. And there's no other way that Kensington would do this than to start off with a game and have fun with it. So we have some people that we've picked. Don't worry, they didn't cheat. They don't know anything. All they know are the rules for the game. So I'm going to invite them up. Come on up, guys. We're going to play a little game in Kensington fashion. We're gonna have some fun with this, and we're gonna see how well you guys know songs from different generations. I know. And we split them up, so we're representing different generations from each team. So yeah, we have team one. We have, tell everybody your name.
Angela Smith.
Angela. We have
Brian.
And
James.
And
Corey.
Can you guys give it up for these guys? All right. So I'm going to tell you guys, I don't want you to give them the answer, but if they're really struggling, I will ask for your help after. But let's just see how well they know it. It's called I know this one. So what's going to happen, so you guys know, the band is only going to play 20 seconds of a song, and then whoever shouts, I know this one, I will let you decide. And if you get the artist and the song title correct, you have to get them both. I know. I'm pretty strict I'm like competitive. It's going to get rowdy up here. And so if you get it right, I'll give you a point. If you don't, I'm going to toss it to the other team. Okay? You guys ready for this? All right, let's check it out, band. Hit it. You guys can cut them off if you know it. Oh no, this is not good. This is not a good start.
Is it Daft Punk, We're Up All Night?
It's not. Oh, does anybody want to help him out? Oh no, what did we do? Oh no. Okay, I'll give this one to you. I didn't know it either, so I'm totally cheating. It is Butter by BTS. So if you're like a Gen Zer, maybe you would know that. Okay, all right. Let's try this again. Ready, guys? 1, 2, 3, go. And you guys can cut them off if you know it. Say, I know this one.
When I saw the break of day,
Hold on.
wish that I could fly away.
Nora Jones.
Yes.
Is it didn't know? I know.
You're so close.
No, I didn't know.
I didn't know by Nora Jones. Okay, let's give you guys a try. You're so close. I think I'm gonna give it to you if they got it.
I felt really confident, and then you said the one that I thought it was going to be. So I know it's Nona Jones.
No, she got it right. Nora Jones, what's the song called?
Don't know why.
Don't know why. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a point. You were so close. Okay, all right, here we go. Let's try another one. Ready, set, go.
It's like you're always stuck in second gear when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But
It's from Friends. It's
it doesn't count.
the Rembrandts. I'll be there for you.
Yes, let's give it up for this team. I was gonna say, you can't say that it's Friends, but you got the name and the artist, so I'm proud of you. Good job. Okay, so we got 1 point each. Let's see if we can break this tie. Are you ready? Let's hit it.
She's coming in 12:30 flight. The moon and wings reflect the stars that guide me toward salvation.
Ooh, okay. Get it, Corey. This is awesome. Let's see.
Isn't it Toto, Africa?
Yes, good job. Nice. All right, let's try one more.
Bittersweet memories. That's all I am taking with me.
Just kidding. I would do that. Okay, what is it?
Yeah, I Will Always Love You, Dolly Parton's cover. Not
Okay, you guys, I'm sorry, but okay, I was sure you guys were gonna say Whitney, and you said the Dolly Parton. That's amazing. That was really good. Okay, so now we have a tie. Let's do a tiebreaker. Here we go. Last one. This is for the prize.
You can shake an apple off an apple tree, or shake a sugar, but you never shake me. Oh, no sorry. Oh.
Are you sure?
Okay, maybe not. No, I'm second guessing.
You got the right artist.
Okay, I know it's Elvis Presley, so I'm gonna say.
Now I'm like nervous.
I was gonna say Blue Suede Shoes, but now I don't think it is.
You're so close.
It's not Hound Dog.
Nope, it's not. But that was 2 guesses too many. Here we go. You guys want to try?
I don't know, but I do want to recognize Chris's really great Elvis impression.
You couldn't miss the Elvis, but you knew. Do you guys know the name of the song? Shout it out. No. Stuck on You. But you know what? You guys were the closest. Starbucks gift cards for the winners. That was tough. But can we give them a round of applause, you guys? Good job, guys. Good job.
People try to put us down
Talking about my generation.
just because we get around.
Talking about my generation.
My generation, this is my generation, baby. My generation, this is my generation, baby. My generation.
Oh, man, we have to have fun around here. We have to laugh at ourselves, you guys. That's awesome. Well, like I said, I am so excited. I really am. I'm not just saying that because I'm up here. I have been impatiently waiting for this series because I really do believe in the importance of having the tough conversations about the tensions that maybe we don't agree with each other when it comes to what this generation is saying about this and what this generation is saying about that. And I think it's so important for us to collectively be here, multi-generations, listening and learning from each other. And the video that we're about to watch is going to show just that. You're going to see 4 people from our church sitting down and just having a real conversation about how they grew up, what the things that they like, the things that they're frustrated with, and it's going to be really good. So I'd love for you guys to just take a moment and watch this video.
I'm Generation X. Gen X, I think, is what they call us. I think we're very strong. I think we have a really good work ethic. We value family, value relationships, like that personal connection. Some of our weaknesses, we're very set in our ways. We like things done in an orderly fashion, and I think we sometimes don't like change, or it's difficult to embrace change when we are used to things going a certain way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a baby boomer. I think our generation is a lot like your generation.
Mm-hmm.
And, although I think we're very strong from a patriotic standpoint, I think that would be a big thing with us. We're very hardworking, and we were, I think, the last generation that really wanted to stay at one place for a long time from an employment standpoint. Yeah. And of course, that's really changed. But
so I'm a millennial. Strengths, I think we are a very flexible generation. We fly by the seat of our pants. We want an adventure out of life. We've grown up in a way where we expect more out of life, which lends itself to, things like justice, things like taking new ground. And on the flip side of that, it has left, which the boomers love to tell me, has left our generation in a very entitled position. So we expect a lot out of life, but are struggling maybe to catch up on how to actually get it.
Do you agree with the boomer generation saying that there's a sense of entitlement with your generation?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely there is. And I think that's really probably one of the biggest pain points in between each of the generations is they feel certain things, they have a way that they expect life to be, but the why behind it is different for each generation, and that
Definitely
is what each generation craves to be understood in. Yeah.
I think that's interesting, and I think it's also key because part of the problem or the disconnect is the understanding of each of the generations and the why that you just mentioned. And I think that only comes with relationships because then you have the opportunity to have those conversations and understand why I believe like I do or why you believe like you do or why you handle things a certain way versus how Elizabeth would handle certain things. So, yeah.
Do you think your generations live in more of a black and white, yes or no perspective? Because I feel like like our generations tend to view things through like more of a gray scale when it comes to any type of idea and belief, and even when it comes to, you know, the Bible and what Jesus says and what following Jesus looks like. Whereas maybe for you guys, does that feel like your generation believes like in more of a yes or no, this is how it is, this is how it isn't mentality?
We do come from a yes/no, black or white perspective, but we're learning to be more open to things and really appreciate the strides that have been made with the diversity and inclusion and other things. However, we wrestle with the biblical standard for things, and you know, we're called to love everyone. I don't know that means we just throw out the book and say, hey, we're going to rip these pages out because they don't fit with my new belief system. Yeah. But how do we model Christ in these challenging environments?
Yeah. You said we're learning. And to fall on our sword, the millennials, Gen Zers have not been gracious in that. When a boomer, a Gen Xer, or anyone for that matter has held maybe a short-sighted view in our eyes, they've been attacked instead of embraced. And there's this division where we could be equally as criminal of being dogmatic and black and white in the middle of our more thoughtful areas, as maybe many of us would like to think about it.
I was taught the yes and no, black and white, but I even still questioned it, you know, and, you know, going back to what is the Holy Spirit telling me that I need to do in that situation with what the word says, and then trying to move in love. And, you know, you'd fall short. No one's perfect, but I think that's where we have to start, and that's the important part, so.
We all are craving this sense of more injustice, but the platforms many of us engage with it on are so fraudulent. Yeah. And we are all becoming very used to that and exchanging it for the real version of relationship and the real version of love and the real version of experiencing the tension when we have this conversation right now.
Yeah. Everything you're saying, we want that.
Yeah.
We want, right? We want folks to understand us and why we think the way we do and why we do the things we do. And I don't think that we think we're right.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
right?
Yeah. We want to be understood as well.
Yeah.
We also want to feel valued in our old-timey ways, in our set ways, and we still want to feel like we're relevant.
Hearing you guys talk, I was really humbled, embarrassed, and convicted that we've really thrown away your generation as, you know, and it was very vulnerable of you to share that we want to be wanted and feel relevant and important in your lives. I haven't heard that very often from your generation, and it made me realize, wow, that's very honest of you, and also made me feel really sad. I'm like, man, isn't that just like us? We burn things hot and fast and throw it away and on to the next one, and we like take you guys for all we can get, and then we demonize you for things we don't like, and that's sad. So I wanted to say, you know, public apology from the millennials and Gen Zers. We love you guys. We need you guys.
That was a beautiful, beautiful conversation. But before I say anything more about that, let me also say, you guys didn't get Butter, huh? That first song, BTS? How many of you have heard of BTS? Let's just go there. Okay, at least most of us have. And so that was the most downloaded song at the beginning of this year. Maybe I'm biased because they're from Korea and they're a Korean group and I just love them. And so, but nevertheless, if anything, one of the things that is going to happen in this series that we're kicking off today is that we are going to be learning a lot more about the interests of other generations, one of them being music. But I love that conversation. And one of the things that really stuck out to me about what they talked about is what Carissa said towards the beginning of it. And she was talking about the power of relationships, because it's through our relationships that we're able to have honest conversations and that we're able to better understand one another. And we saw it happen right here, because we had 4 different people from 4 very different generations. And as they talked, they came to recognize that they actually share significant commonalities. That what they share is that all of them have a desire to be understood, to be wanted, and to be valued. And when they realized this, it changed the way that they saw one another, no longer as a boomer or as a millennial, these labels that so often we place upon one another, but rather as a human being. And they began to move towards one another. And if you noticed at the end, there was a healing and a reconciliation that began to occur. And this is our hope for the series that we are kicking off today, because at times it can feel like we are so different. Because honestly, how many of us have looked at somebody in their late 50s, 60s, and 70s and thought to ourselves, boomer, and because of something that they did or something that they thought? Or how many of us have looked at a millennial and the words selfish and entitled came to mind? Yes, exactly, you have. I have, probably many of us have, right? And I am a Gen Xer. My wife, Robin, is a Gen Xer. And I cannot tell you the number of times that our oldest daughter, who is sitting or was sitting right over there, how many times she has actually looked at us and said, Mom and Dad, you think that way, you do that because you were born back in the 1900s. You kidding me? And apparently that's also when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, right? But we all have such different ways of viewing and understanding and living in the world that is it even possible for us to find common ground? And as we saw in this conversation, it absolutely is. But it requires us to work for it, to fight for it, to lay down our pride and to take up humility, to suspend our judgment, and rather to choose curiosity. But if we choose to do this as individuals and as a community, I truly believe it'll allow us to not only experience a more beautiful life, but we'll all be a part of creating a more beautiful future. And so as we continue on, would you join me in prayer? So God, we thank you. I thank you for every single person here in this room, every single person who is joining via stream, God. We are all a part of different generations, Lord. And oftentimes, Lord, when we look at people, Lord, who are decades older than us, people decades younger than us, people of different generations, we just don't get it, Lord. We don't understand why they do what they do, why they think, why they view the world in the way that they do, and it's frustrating, God. And it can divide us, Lord, and it could create space between us. But you desire for us as your people, Lord, people living in this world, not to be divided, not to be fragmented, but truly to come together. And show us, God, that as people, and most importantly as your followers, Lord, that we have incredible commonalities, the greatest commonality being you. And so bring us together, God. Give us a vision, your vision, Lord, to be able to invest, but also to receive. And we pray all these things in your Son's powerful name. Amen. And so as we begin this series, something that's really, really important for us to do is for us to all be on the same page when it comes to terms, because there are a lot of terms involved in this conversation, terms that can be defined in different ways. Terms like Gen Z, Gen X, millennial, and so what exactly does that mean? Who is included in each of these groups? And so what we want to do is we want to put parameters, we want to define each of these generations, but this is also where I need your help, because we're not gonna only define them, but what I'm gonna ask you to do is when I call out your generation, I need you to represent and I need you to make some noise. So you guys ready for this? Okay, so thank you, 3 people. Let me try this again. Okay, I recognize you guys are the 9 a.m. crowd. For those of you who are watching on stream, jump in too. So you guys ready to do this? Yeah. Awesome, fantastic. Okay, so we are going to start. Make some noise if you were born before 1946. Silent generation. Any silent generation people? Yes. Yes, silent generation, also known by some people as the greatest generation, right? We can argue that, but I would say you guys are. And so the silent generation was formed by events, big events like World War II, as well as the Great Depression. And then the next generation after that, and I know we have a lot of these people in the room and watching on stream, make some noise if you're a boomer. Boomers! 1946 to 1964, and let me tell you, looking back at the boomers, you guys experienced so much. We're talking about the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Civil Rights Movement, the assassination of President Kennedy. So much happened. And then the next generation after that, I would argue, is the greatest generation in the history of the world. Gen Xers, where are we at? Gen X, 1965 to 1980, and we experienced the Challenger disaster. We experienced also the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Civil Rights Movement also had an impact on our generation. And this next generation has been much maligned. We make fun of them a lot, but they are a very, very important generation. Millennials represent. Where are you guys at? There you guys are. 81 to 96, and 9/11 has impacted you. The tech revolution has impacted you. And in a similar way, after millennials came Generation Z. Any Generation Z people? 97 to 2012? There you go. Wow. And similar, as I was thinking about Generation Z, similar to the boomers, so much has happened. Like 9/11, the tech revolution significantly impacted you. The Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, but also with Generation Z, school shootings has had a significant impact in really traumatizing this generation and shaping this generation as well. And most recently, after Generation Z, some of us may know them, some of us may not, but it's Generation Alpha. And it's 2013 to the present. And Generation Alpha is right there. We have some there. Most of them aren't K-Kids, but some of them are there. I see you. I see you. And so this is who we are talking about in this series, each of these generations, that we would keep this in mind. And as someone who's a part of Gen X, and I'm very, very proud of it, I barely squeaked in to that generation. One of my favorite movies growing up was Titanic. Because honestly, how do you not watch that movie and fall in love with Jack and Rose? I love that movie. Still to this day, I have a really fondness for it. And most of us probably know the story of this ship that struck an iceberg and sank. But what I didn't know about this story was that the crew received 9 separate warnings, and they largely chose to do nothing. And when they received the iceberg alert, you would have thought there would have been a little bit more urgency, but the captain, Edward Smith, only made a slight course correction and did nothing else. And the radio operators who were on board the ship, they even received even more dire, more urgent warnings, but they didn't think it was important enough to relay that information to the bridge. And so that ship, it struck an iceberg and it sank, and more than 1,500 people lost their lives. And it's widely recognized that it wasn't the iceberg that was the main culprit in sinking the ship, but rather hubris. Because the Titanic was the largest vessel in the world at the time. It was equipped with the latest technology, and it was believed to be virtually unsinkable, which is probably why they ignored most of these warnings. And in a similar manner, the church, meaning us, we have received several important warnings about what is to come. And these warnings mostly pertain to the next generation. And for the most part, we've largely ignored these warnings. We've chosen complacency over course correction, maybe due to a spiritual hubris. For example, millennials, those born between 1981 to 1996. Millennials make up 23% of the US population. Almost 1 in 4 are millennials, largest population in the United States. But less than 10% of churches have this level of representation in their communities. Another study that was done recently of more than 440 churches found that almost 20% of churches have zero, I'm not talking about a little bit, zero young adult presence. The Barna Group, they did a study last year, and they found that Generation Z, those born between 1997 to 2012, so many of our children, only 4% of Generation Z have a biblical worldview. And this number has been decreasing with every successive generation. And Gen Z is the first post-Christian generation. And just to give you one more stat, I don't want to overwhelm you, but just to give you one more. But in our country, a church closes its doors every 2.5 hours. And an author by the name of David John Seal, in his book, New Copernicans, this is what he wrote, which I think is so insightful. Churches thrive for a number of reasons, but they close for just one: a failure to reach the next generation. And right now, we are perfectly aligned for the results that we're getting, which means that when it comes to the future of the church, when it comes to our future, really, even just as in the world, that if we want to get something different, we have to think something different, and we have to do something different. And so when we actually look at our future and what lies ahead, absolutely, it is a huge challenge. But a different way that we can actually look at it is that it's also a huge opportunity that I believe that lies in front of us. That if we actually choose to intentionally engage, that it can result in not only a seismic shift in our community, but I believe that we'll be able to have an impact on our nation as well as our world. But what happens will ultimately be determined by how we choose to respond. Because if we choose to do nothing, and we're just thinking, hey, you know what? Status quo is great. And we just continue along this road. I believe what will happen is what we're actually going to be looking at in the scripture passage today. And when we look at the Old Testament in particular in the Bible, one of the greatest leaders in the history of Israel was a guy by the name of Moses. And Moses is the one, if you've seen movies about Moses, maybe you've read the story about Moses, maybe you heard it in Sunday school growing up. But Moses is the one who God used to liberate his people from slavery in Egypt. He's the one who also led the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years. And Moses had an apprentice, he had an assistant, a guy by the name of Joshua. And over a period of years, Moses invested into Joshua. He built him up, he raised him up. And so when Moses passed away, guess who stepped into his role? It was Joshua. And Joshua is the one who led the Israelites into the promised land. And the thing with Joshua was that he was someone who was committed and faithful to God, continually pointed his people towards God. And so Joshua wasn't just a military leader, but in so many ways, he led his fellow Israelites spiritually as well. And as a result, this is what happened. It says in the Old Testament book of Joshua, Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had experienced everything the Lord had done for Israel. And so this generation of Israelites who lived during the time of Joshua, they continued to lean into God, continued to live according to his ways. And as a result, God did not only beautiful things in them, but through them as well. And this is the impact that Joshua had on his generation. But after Joshua and this generation passed away, things dramatically changed. And we read in the Old Testament book of Judges, after that whole generation, meaning Joshua's generation, had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals, meaning other idols. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshiped various gods of the people around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baals and the Ashtoreths, which are the gods of the surrounding people. And so this new generation after Joshua, it's crazy to read that. And to read that, you know what? They didn't know God, right? They didn't know the things that God had done for their ancestors, how he had freed them from slavery, parted an entire sea, brought water from a rock, led them through the wilderness for 4 decades, and how he had conquered this land that they were now living in and enjoying. They didn't know any of that. And so this is the thing, right? When you read that, one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves is, how in the world did that happen? How did that dramatic of a shift happen in such a short period of time? And it was because somewhere along the way, that older generation stopped telling stories to the younger generation about who God was and what he had done for them. That older generation didn't think it was important enough to live according to the ways that God wanted. And so they stopped modeling it for the younger generations. They stopped teaching them. And as a result, this new generation that came up after them, they had no idea who God was. And it resulted in the nation of Israel spiraling downward, morally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as socially. And this is the thing, that if it happened back then, it could happen today as well. And what's so interesting is that when we actually look at the scriptures, what we see is that God knew that this could happen. And so we see in several places in the scriptures that he built in, he created and instituted systems and structures for one generation to actually invest in the next. And I want to give you one example of it, and it's in the Old Testament book of Numbers. It's a really interesting passage, and it has to do with Levites, who are priests who are called to serve God. And this is what God told them to do. And the Lord said to Moses, this applies to the Levites. He's saying, what I'm about to tell you, this applies to these priests. Men 25 years old or more shall come to take part in the work at the tent of meeting, which is where God met with his people. But at the age of 50, these priests must retire from their regular service and work no longer. They may assist their brothers in performing their duties at the tent of meeting, but they themselves must not do the work. This then is how you are to assign the responsibilities of the Levites. Isn't that really interesting? Because you read that and you wonder, why would God ask someone to retire at the age of 50, right? And imagine if that was you. For all of you who are around 50 years old or maybe even past 50 years old, what if you had forced retirement at 50? And maybe some of you are like, yeah, I want to live in that society, right? We need to go back to biblical times. That's what I want to do. But honestly, think about that, right? Because at 50, think of all the skills and the knowledge and experiences that you've accumulated in your life and in your career. And in many ways, in your 50s, you are humming along, right? You are confident, you've acquired, you have all of this experience, and you're moving forward, and you can finally run in many ways. And God is saying, nope, you're stopping at 50, right? And you're getting replaced by a 25-year-old? Are you kidding me? How would you feel? But yet God is asking this of his people, and so why would he do this? And it was so that they could raise up the next generation. Because notice, to the 50-year-old, God doesn't say, hey, you know what, pack it in, go sit on a beach and wait until you die. That is not what he says to that person. But rather he says, I want you to mentor and I want you to teach the next generation. I want you to give them space to lead. But at the same time, what I also want you to do is walk alongside of them so that they can avoid some of the pitfalls that you experienced as well. And it was an incredible system that God created so that this next generation would be raised up, would be invested in, and would follow in the footsteps and move in the direction that he desired. And these two candles that you see behind me, one of these candles represents me, and one of these candles represents my children. And you may think that the big candle represents me because I'm bigger than, physically larger than my children. I've experienced more, even accomplished more than them. But this is the thing, it's actually the opposite, right? I am the small candle because I've lived more of life and I have less life in front of me. And this is the thing, when we actually look at these candles, what is the point of lighting this smaller candle and putting it up on a stand for all to see? Strictly from a practical perspective, wouldn't it be better for us to be able to take the experiences that we've had, the lessons that we've learned, and as the older generation, wouldn't it be better for us to pass this along to the younger generation who has an entire lifetime ahead of them? Wouldn't that be something that would be so much more powerful? That they would, people who will outlive us, people who could carry on that legacy, and people who could build upon what we have experienced. Would that not be better? And this is the thing, that if we're the smaller candle, and we all are, and if we're the older generation, and we all are, in one degree or another, that it's not because we're older that we should pack it in and it's finished for us. Because that's not how God views us. Because as long as we are drawing breath, God has and wants to do something extraordinary, not only in us, but through us as well. But something that we have to recognize is that one of the ways that God wants to continue to use us is to share our light, is to share what we have with the next generation. And this is what he desires for us to do and to pass this along. And someone who has actually been doing this for years is a friend of mine named Taylor Kadagowski. So Taylor, I'd love for you to come up. And she is a powerful leader. She is a powerful entrepreneur. And she is someone who's actually, as we've been talking about, what does it actually look like to share our light? She is someone who's been doing this with the next generation. So can we give her a hand, everyone?
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.
I just love this conversation. I seriously was sitting over there, and when you were like naming off each of the generations, I could have like wept, honestly, because like I felt like as you were, sharing, the characteristics of each of them, it was like, man, we have all gone through so much pain. Yeah. It's like, that's our commonality. And so, I don't know, it's so interesting. Yeah. So I'm honored to speak.
And you have so much to say about this because of the fact that you not only are somebody, of course, who has been invested in, but you are actively doing this. And you are a millennial. But one of the cool stories, and one of the things is that I shared this with you, but as I was looking at this message and thinking about this weekend, and I was just, your name immediately came to mind because you are living this out. And so I'd love for you to tell us more about Ruby, this organization that you've created, and how you've partnered with, as a millennial, those in Gen Z to really be able to reach Gen Z. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I had the privilege in the end of 2020 to partner with two young women named Eden and Sam, and we together launched something called Ruby, which is a multimedia company that we have a podcast, we have social media presence, we just had a giant, beautiful event where almost like 100 young women came to Detroit, and it was a conference style thing. It's been awesome, but partnered with them to be able to create content and be able to create conversations about personal development, spirituality, and just the good stuff that we all need to talk about, targeted toward Gen Z as a generation. Because I had found, I am someone that has always been so passionate about personal development. I was like in high school, like reading like personal development, like spiritual texts under my desk during math class. And I found that those pieces of media were really targeted toward people that were older than me. I've always been like the younger one in part of these conversations. So we began to wonder, what does it look like if we take this amazing, life-changing information that's out there and bring it toward this generation, because it's information we all need to know. And so it's been so fun. Ruby right now is on a bit of we're taking a pause because Eden and Sam are graduating high school and they're like living their best lives. And so, but so far we're excited for where it's gonna go.
Yeah, that's so cool. And Eden and Sam are powerful leaders in and of themselves.
They're amazing.
And Robin and I, we've tried to get them to babysit, but they're just way too busy for us right now, but hopefully one day. But this is the thing, right? Why did you actually choose to invest in Generation Z? And not only Generation Z, but also I would imagine that as you and Sam and Eden are doing this, that you've also been able to invest in them. And so why not just stick to your own people or just want to be invested in? Why have you really made this intentional effort to raise up this next generation?
Well, kind of like you pointed to, I have just been the beneficiary of so many intentional and kind people that have poured into my life. And so it's right, like when your cup is full, you have enough to give elsewhere. And so that's honestly where I've been. I love my life. I'm proud of the life I'm creating because of the people that have poured into me. And so it's just been a natural thing that I've cared to do, is just pay attention to other people. And honestly, more than just mentoring and being a part of the lives of people that are younger than me, it's just living an intergenerational lifestyle. Like seriously, one of my best friends is 74 years old, and she's a mentor of mine, and we talk almost like every week, and I care about her life, she cares about mine. And so I don't know, I just see the importance of that we're all connected and we're all one. And so how do we just continue to pour into each other just because we're here on this planet together?
I love that perspective. And so what would you say, right? Just the last question that I want to ask you, because you have some great insights into this, but what would you say to somebody who is out there and they're thinking, I don't know, like how should I do this? Do I have anything to offer? What are the avenues that I can move into? And they're sort of like sitting on the fence and wondering, hey, I've never really done this before, but I really feel like a tug to be able to do this. What would you say to that person in the room and watching on stream right now?
I would say pay attention to what you truly love and what truly lights you up. And it's not just about having this agenda of like, I need to go mentor and like care about this next generation. It's if you're someone that loves, like I'll speak for myself, like I love getting coffee and I love fashion and I love art. And so I'm gonna connect with people naturally that care about those things, and it doesn't matter what their age is or whatever that is, I'm gonna connect with them, and then we're gonna add value to each other. Like it would be silly of me if I was like, I'm gonna go play basketball with a bunch of young people. Like that's not what I do. And so like paying attention to what lights you up and then sharing that with other people and just sharing it together is what I would say.
Yeah, I love your humility. I love your desire to learn and really see value in people who are younger than you, generations younger than you, and of course, generations older than you. And so thanks so much for being here, Taylor. Can we give her a huge hand, everyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. And something that, as Taylor was talking about, something that also this whole idea of investing into the next generation, there are so many different ways that people in our community are doing that. And another example of this happening, even this past week in this building, was that we had Spring Hill Day Camps here. And that was an incredible, incredible week, action-packed week, and that we had millennials, we had those in Gen Z investing into Generation Alpha. And my two children were a part of this, and they had an incredible experience because they had high school students, college students, people who older than that, just really really leading them and sharing their experiences, their knowledge, their wisdom with them, and through all of that, ultimately pointing them to Jesus. And so one of the big reasons why that was able to happen was because of your generosity, that we're able to do this every single year, and really this investment is able to happen. But something else that I want to mention is that if you've watched the news this past week, you also know that there's a heartbreaking situation happening in the middle of our country, in Missouri as well as Kentucky, and that they received months worth of rain in just a few short days. And so entire towns have been submerged, homes have been lost, and probably the worst is that people have lost their lives. And so one of the reasons that we've been able to partner, and one of our move out teams is an organization called DRAW, which is Disaster Relief at Work. And we have people who are on the ground there. And so we were able to give $5,000 to DRAW to really be able to help provide supplies for people who are desperately hurting right now. And one of the reasons why we've been able to do this, respond to natural disasters and situations all around the world, is because of your generosity. And so we also want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so one of the ways, and so we're going to receive our offering at this time. But I am so incredibly grateful for this community because you truly have lived like this. And so I want to say thank you for choosing to live like that, catching the vision, because our desire is to take the message of Jesus out, whatever that looks like and however that looks like in that context. And so if you would like to partner with us in that mission, there are a number of ways that we can give, and they're going to come up on the side screens. We can give by texting the word Kensington to 77977. We can also give via the app, which is so quick to give. We can give via the website, which is how Robin and I give. Or for those of us here in the room, there are also boxes at every entrance and every exit, and we can place our offering in there as well. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity. And so one of the things that I wanted to do with the time that we have remaining is that I want to talk about some practical ways that we can live out what we've been talking about today. Because something that I truly believe is that the older generation wants to invest and that the younger generation wants to be invested in. And so how does this happen? And something that's so important for us to do is one of the first steps that we need to take is that we need to be able to listen to one another. And not just listen, but to listen without judgment. Because I think it's really, really difficult for us to do this, especially for people who are different than us, because we have this tendency to put up walls and to put labels on people. So what would it actually look like for us to listen without judgment? But at the same time, having this spirit of listening without judgment, one of the things that we can do, and I'm going to be talking to both the older generation as well as the younger generation. For those of us in the older generation, and let me clarify this. By older, I mean anyone who has another generation coming up after them. And so this includes those of you who are in the silent generation. That includes boomers, that includes Gen Xers, that includes millennials, that also includes those of you who are in Gen Z, because you have Generation Alpha coming up after. And so what that basically means is that for most of us, the vast majority of us here in the room and watching on stream, we are quote unquote the older generation. And what if we as the older generation listened to the younger generation, and specifically as it shows there, what if we actually listened to their dreams? And a good friend of mine, his name is Brian Petty, and he's a millennial. And this past March, we had the opportunity to go out to California together for an Asian American civil rights tour. And this is sort of an aside, but I remembered this morning, was that we were in San Francisco, and we had just gotten back from Angel Island, which is an immigration station. It's known as the Ellis Island of the West. And terrible injustices happened to Asian Americans or Asians who were immigrating to this country in that station. But we had finished the tour, and we were at Fisherman's Wharf, and we needed to probably it was about 1.5 miles to our vehicle. And so Brian is like, hey, why don't we just rent these electric scooters? And if you've been to Detroit, you've probably seen them. And I had never been on one of these things, but he convinced me to go on one. And so we're going down this street. It's called Embarcadero in San Francisco, and it's a crazy busy street. There are people everywhere. There are cars going everywhere. And so I'm riding my little electric scooter, trying not to die. And Brian's beside me, and his thing runs out of battery, right? So I'm like, hey, why don't you just jump on with me? So I'm riding my thing. He has one foot on the back. He's holding on to me. We're probably going like 20 miles an hour, and in that moment, he thinks it's a good idea to take out his phone and film the thing so he can post it on social. And I remember looking back at him, and I said to him, this is the difference between our generations, right? Totally right. But on that trip, God birthed in him a dream to reach and to really be able to come alongside other mixed-race people, to be able to not only help them understand their identity, but really to step into their God-given identity as well. And as I've listened to Brian and this dream that God has placed upon his heart, it really has been beautiful, because as he's journeyed and as he said yes to God, God has opened up so many doors for him. But this is also what has happened. As I've listened to his dream and as I've listened to his passion has really inspired me as well to continue to say yes to what God is asking me to do, because that's what happens, is that when we listen to the younger generation and we hear their passion, it also fills us with passion, because you all know this, because as we journey on in life, we tend to get a little bit more cynical. We tend to get a little bit more jaded, because we come into contact in a greater way with the brokenness in our world. And so when we as the older generation, we listen to the younger generation and we hear their passion, that passion is transferred to us. It inspires us to live in a very similar way of saying yes to God and pursuing what he has for us. But at the same time, for those of us who are a part of the younger generation and have other generations who are in front of us, something that is so important for us to do is that we need to listen as well. And we need to listen, when it comes to the older generation, we need to listen to their experiences. And I have the privilege of meeting with a handful of people on a somewhat regular basis, people who are 10, 20, 30 years further down the road than I am. And they share with me the things that they've experienced in their life, which I am so incredibly grateful for. And these people have accomplished extraordinary things that I probably will never, ever be able to do. But in recent years, something that each of these people have said to me as they've looked back on their lives is that they said to me, do not sacrifice your family for work. Because at some point in their lives and in their career, that's exactly what they did, is that they put their family in the back seat so that they could pursue that next title, so that next rung on the corporate ladder. And they have looked back on their lives and they have said, that was one of the greatest mistakes, one of the greatest regrets of my life. Do not do that. And as I have heard their stories, as they've shared with me their experiences, one of the things that I have received is that wisdom from them. And I love what the late author and theologian Eugene Peterson, how he actually defined wisdom. And he defined it as the art of living skillfully in this world. And as we listen to the older generation, we're able to receive that wisdom. And this life that we all have the privilege to live, we're able to navigate it much more skillfully, and we do not have to do it ourselves. We can take what the older generation has experienced, and we can use that wisdom to help us navigate this world and our life. But in addition to listening and in addition to receiving, what we also need to do as the older generation is we need to value the younger generation. Is that we definitely need to do this. We need to value their perspective. We need to value their leadership, the talents and the skills that God has given them, and also not just do it just with words, but also to give them a seat at the table, at the decision-making table. And as the younger generation, we need to honor the older generation. We need to honor their accomplishments, their experiences. We need to honor the sacrifices that they have made for us as well. And when you actually look at these 6 things, we're both a part, probably the vast majority of us, we're a part of the older generation and we are a part of the younger generation. What if we actually lived like this? What if we listened? What if we chose to receive? And what if we chose to honor and value one another? But in order for us to do this, what undergirds it all, I truly believe, is humility. Is that rather than choosing pride, it requires us to lay that down and to say, you know what, I'm going to choose to learn exactly what Taylor was talking about. I'm going to choose to learn. I'm going to choose to value. I'm going to choose to honor the people around us. Because something that I know that all of us know is that we really are better together. And as I was thinking about people who have invested into me, I was reminded of this one man named Bill Short. And Bill and I, we started meeting when he was in his 90s. And we would meet for lunch on a somewhat regular basis at this restaurant in the Philadelphia area called the Dixie Picnic. And the thing with Bill is that he had lived so much life. He had served in the armed forces. He had accomplished so much in business. He had traveled all around the world. And so every single time we met, he had story after story after story to tell me. He met Jesus in his 40s. And then after that, he just went full bore. And one of the beautiful things about Bill is that after he met Jesus, he continued just to give himself away. And he continued to invest in every single person that he could around him, sharing with them his experiences, his knowledge, his wisdom, the things that he had, and he truly lived his life like this. And Bill passed away last year. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to his funeral, but I streamed it. And as they panned into the audience, there were hundreds of people there. And so many of these people were men like me, who he had invested into and raised up and built up. And people, he just simply gave himself away. And the thing was, is that I caught a vision of what if I actually chose to live in that way? Let me also ask you, what if you chose and we chose to live in that way? Not just sticking to people who are like us, but also choosing to give ourselves away in that way. Because the things that God has given us, the skills, the experiences, the wisdom, he asks us not to live a life like this, but truly to live like this, open-handed, as we have freely received, to be able to freely give. And one of the ways that we can do this, because probably many of us are doing this, but another way that we can do this right here in this community, and we have a desperate need for it, is with our middle school ministry in particular. Because our middle schoolers, who I know we all love, but when it comes to the boys and the young men in the middle school ministry, you know how many male small group leaders we have? Absolutely zero. Zero right now. And imagine, we've all been in middle school. That is such a formative period of our life. And as a young man, parents are great. But at the same time, we also need those older voices to speak into our life, to show us, hey, you know what? You shouldn't do this. Try this. To cry with us, to laugh with us, to have fun with us. And so if you are a man and you have a passion for the next generation, this is one way, starting today, that you can do this. And if this is something that you want to explore, if you want to have a conversation about it, go out to the hub. You'll see people with bright orange shirts on. Talk to them. But this is one way that we can say yes to doing what God has asked us to do today. And so that we would be people who truly live like this. That is my hope and that is my prayer for us as a community. Let's pray. God, we thank you. We thank you for this beautiful community. I thank you for every single person in the seats and watching on stream, people who will watch this later on as well, God. And Lord, we all have had people invest into us at some point in our life, God. None of us have got to where we are by ourselves. And so as people have invested into us and given us so much, Lord, may we freely give this away, Lord, because this is how you have told us to live. This is how we can create a more beautiful world, not by hanging on to things, Lord, by living an open-handed life. So we thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord, that this is your plan for us. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to transition into a song, and the band is going to lead us in just a beautiful song. It's called The Goodness of God. And one of the lines in the song is that you have been so good to me throughout my entire life. And it's an invitation to reflect on the goodness of God. And just as he has been good to us, that we wouldn't just hold on to that as we've been talking about, but that we would freely give it away. And so if you are able to, for those of us, this includes those of you who are streaming as well, we want to invite you to stand up and let's sing this out together.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna sing. Oh, 'cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. He's worthy, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around. Sing holy. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Beside you. Open up my eyes and just show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
It's a great, great reminder that ultimately that we build our life on Jesus. And so, but one of the things that he's asked us to do is to invest. And so if this is something that you love, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Drop by the hub. It's also the place, if you are relatively new with us, we'd love to meet you and answer any questions that you may have. And also our prayer team will be down front for anyone who would like to receive prayer. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for streaming. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.